G'day everybody, we're going through a contradiction that we have a bit of a problem. We have a donkey problem. I want to go through a contradiction with you that, well, I'm actually a bit excited to go through this, and what I thought it is so much more and cooler than I even thought. My name is Craig, and this is Morningstar Quest, where we are delving into the Bible one question at a time, and we're going through one contradiction at a time. This is my friend Cosmo. Say g'day.
Hey everyone, Craig's brought up a fascinating contradiction. So was it one donkey or two? Let's dive in and uncover the details.
Now, when I first started this, let's just go in here. Actually, no, we're going to go into this part here. This is, well, contradiction number 41 on what did Jesus ride into Jerusalem. Now, at first I thought it was it a donkey? Was it something else? And like I said, I think I found something so much more and so much deeper than what I started with. And when we go into, let me just go back in here, we have there's 4 verses here, 2 oppose each other, 2 for 2. So we start with Luke 19:35. They brought it to Jesus, that's the donkey. They threw their cloaks on the colt and put Jesus on it. And then John 12:14 says John found a young donkey. A donkey? I'm going to leave that one in.
Yep, nice. It adds a bit of personality.
Yep, it's a donkey.
It's an interesting detail that...
Sorry, I keep cutting
Exactly.
you off. Yes, I do. So John 12:14, Jesus found a young donkey and sat on it as it was written. Now, we'll get into that in a sec, but okay, we have a colt and a young donkey. Now, why are these 2 verses, why is this even on the list?
That's a great question. It often comes up because Matthew describes both a donkey and a colt, while the others focus on just one. It might seem like a contradiction at first glance.
Well, hang on. You're jumping too far ahead here. And yeah, we're just going to slow down a bit because we're only on Luke 19 and John 12.
Got it. Let's break it down step by step, focusing on Luke and John first.
All right, so we've just got here, they put it as, in this contradiction, they put it as, on what did Jesus ride into Jerusalem? And we're going with Luke 19:35 and John 12:14. And in both of these, it states one is a colt and one is a young donkey. Now, I don't even know why this is here because I think a young donkey is a colt.
Exactly. Colt just means a young donkey, so there's no contradiction there.
All right. But I want to go into this deeper because we have Matthew 21:5-7 and Mark 11:7. So this is where we start to get a bit interesting. So I don't even know why they got Luke and John in there. So Matthew 21 says, say to daughter Zion. Now we'll get into what this is about in a sec, but say to daughter Zion, see your king comes to you, gentle and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. The disciples went and did as Jesus had instructed them. They brought the donkey and the donkey and the colt, and placed their cloaks on them for Jesus to sit on. Now, this one seems a little bit hilarious if you kind of just take it literally that Jesus is riding 2 animals.
Yeah, it can sound almost comical if you picture it that way, but Matthew's likely emphasizing the fulfillment of prophecy, not that Jesus physically rode both at once.
It's just the wording here, though, isn't it? They brought the donkey and the colt and placed their cloaks on them for Jesus to sit on.
Exactly. The wording can be a bit tricky. It suggests they covered both animals, but it doesn't necessarily mean he rode both. It's more about fulfilling that prophecy from Zechariah 9:9.
And we'll get, like I said, we'll get into that. But Mark 11:7, when they brought the colt to Jesus and threw their cloaks over it, he sat on it. So really, he's sitting on the colt here, isn't he?
Yes, Mark is clear that Jesus sat on the colt. It's more straightforward, focusing on one animal.
But it's just the fact that there has these two animals in Matthew. And I find this interesting. Now, is this a contradiction?
Many don't see it as a contradiction, but a difference in emphasis. Matthew highlights the prophetic fulfillment, while the others focus on the key detail of Jesus riding the colt.
Now, it does come back to, what's the word, prophecy.
A matter
back in...
Yep, Zechariah 9:9 mentions a king riding on a donkey and a colt.
The interesting thing is, this is talking back to Deuteronomy. So it's got Deuteronomy's prophecy in there. And we'll read the whole thing. Jesus came to Jerusalem as king. As they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethage on the Mount of Olives, Jesus, how do you say, is that Bethage or Bethage?
It's usually pronounced Bethphage.
Okay. Oh, I was close, but on the Mount of Olives,
Yep.
Jesus sent two disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you, and at once you will find a donkey tied there with her colt by her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, say that the Lord needs them, and he will send them right away." This took place to fulfill what was spoken through the prophets. And this is what is said in Zechariah. Say to the daughter Zion, see your king comes to you, gentle and riding on a donkey and on a colt, the foal of a donkey. This is so interesting, isn't it?
It is. Zechariah uses poetic parallelism, which can explain why Matthew mentions both. It's a stylistic way to emphasize the prophecy's fulfillment.
And when Matthew describes a lot of things, there is also a duality, or, having two witnesses for things, but also in this, there are two donkeys.
Right. Matthew often emphasizes fulfillment in a more detailed way, and having two animals could symbolize that completeness or double witness.
But also it is trying to be more in line with tradition. And Matthew is for the Jewish people. They are all into tradition. Oh, I'm just not saying things right today. And it goes on. The disciples went and did as Jesus had instructed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and placed their cloaks on them for Jesus to sit on. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, while others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. The crowds that went ahead of them and those that followed shouted, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest heaven." When Jesus entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred and asked, "Who is this?" The crowds answered, "This is Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee." So there's a lot of tradition coming up here. And just a bit of a backstory, this is the beginning of what we call the Holy Week. And so we start with Palm Sunday, and this is where all the palms are put down in front of Jesus on the donkey. And we go through the week, and there's a lot of things that happen during this week. And obviously this is where at the end of the week, on Good Friday, that Jesus is crucified, and on Sunday he is resurrected.
Exactly. And Matthew's emphasis on prophecy and tradition helps his Jewish audience connect Jesus' entry to those messianic expectations. It sets the stage for the events of Holy Week.
So the question here is this a contradiction? On what did Jesus ride into Jerusalem? So far, all Gospels are the same. He is riding on a colt. There's really no question with this, is there?
No real contradiction. The difference is in how Matthew adds detail to align with prophecy. The core message is consistent across all accounts.
So on this side of things, Jesus is riding on a colt. There is no question.
Exactly. All accounts agree on that key point.
But why is there this one account with the mother of this colt, the donkey?
Matthew likely included both to highlight the completeness of the prophecy in Zechariah. It paints a vivid picture for his audience.
But also, I will actually just, even outside of the Bible, traditionally, how old would a colt be?
Typically, A colt is a young donkey under 4 years old, often still staying close to its mother.
Staying close to its mother. And not traditionally, but what's the word I'm looking for? When it comes to training donkeys, it takes a little bit longer for a donkey to be trained than a horse, doesn't it?
Yes, donkeys can be more stubborn and require more patience to train compared to horses.
Oh yeah, forgot that donkeys are a bit stubborn, aren't they? So probably because they're a bit smart.
Exactly. They're quite intelligent and cautious, which can come off as stubbornness.
So we're talking probably anywhere between 3 to 4 years old as this colt.
That's a reasonable estimate. It would still be young enough to be called a colt and might need the mother nearby for reassurance.
And when it comes to, because it said that this colt had never been ridden.
Right? That detail emphasizes how special the event is. It's a sign of something sacred or set apart.
And the thing is, in the Old Testament, there was always talk of this Messiah that was going to come, and it seemed like he was going to come on this big horse and come in with war and come in with fighting and just strike everything down. And yet, here we have Jesus, who is this Messiah, who's just turning everything upside down, and he's riding on a donkey.
Exactly. It's a powerful statement of humility and peace, contrasting those expectations of a conquering king.
And the thing here is, and I find this fascinating, is this colt needs its mother because it's never been ridden, and there are crowds around, hundreds if not thousands of people crowded around. It would be very scary, and it has to have its mother.
Absolutely. The presence of its mother would have provided comfort and calm amidst all that commotion, making the scene even more meaningful.
And the thing here is, I see this vision of kings coming in on horses, and then Jesus says, no, it's on a donkey. You know, the prophecy talks about being on a donkey, and then a donkey's not enough. We're going to lower it. We're going to make it a colt. We're going to lower this again because colts are very timid and they have never been ridden. This is how colts are normally trained. And very, before they're 4 or something, they don't get ridden. They get used to people, but that's about it. And yet Jesus lowers it again, and it's a colt that needs its mother. How humble is that?
It's an incredible display of humility. It shows a king who identifies with the lowly, turning expectations upside down.
Absolutely upside down. And I just see how Jesus can just take this scene and just dial it down, and it just means so much more. I mean, if he came riding on a horse and just took over, I don't think it would have as much meaning.
Exactly. The contrast is so striking. It's a powerful message about a kingdom built on peace, humility, and love.
So I don't know why this is on the list, because all you have to do is read the verses and it just makes sense. Yes, you probably need to know a little bit of history with the prophecy from Zechariah, but at the same time, Jesus is always on a colt in each one of these scenarios. Just because there's an extra donkey, I don't think it really makes it a contradiction.
Exactly. The core message remains the same. Matthew's extra detail doesn't change the fundamental event.
Well, exactly. And if you put cloaks on both the mother and the colt, and Jesus rides them, that could still mean the colt. It's just a way of phrasing things. And each one of these Gospels is specific to a different audience. So with Matthew, it is that Jewish audience. So there is more tradition. And it's talking about Zechariah's prophecy. And it's talking about the 2 donkeys. So because it's all there. Whereas the others, nobody knows the whole, the history. So they just talk about the one, and they just keep it simple because that's the story that needs to be told.
Exactly. Each gospel writer shapes the account to resonate with their audience while keeping the core truth intact. It's not a contradiction, just different perspectives.
So this one is busted. I want you to join me with this journeying through each one of these contradictions. I'm doing one a week, and if you want to click on that one, we're going to go through so many more, and it's like a Bible study. I'm finding out so much more with these things, and I would love you to join me. So click on that, go do something awesome for God, and I'll catch you in the next one.